So the next agenda is a panel discussion you'll find in your brochure. It's all about meeting the challenge of disruptive change within C-level executives. So in this fast-paced market, standing still means falling behind, but fear not. The next set of leaders is here to teach us how to dance with disruption, even take the lead. Now I'm excited to learn and hear about how they've turned potential upheavals into opportunities for growth. So let's give a warm welcome to the visionaries who don't just survive, but they thrive when this happens. So I'm going to invite every panelist up. We can give them applaud after they're up on stage. First up, Amit Bagaria, the managing partner of Arus Properties LLP. Come on up. Ann Summer, she's CEO of Ann Summer Coaching. Amit Bala, the founder and CEO, Transform into Your Best. Harshal Patil, founder and CEO, BTB Venture, and Mustafa Zaglo, the FMCG expert. Everyone has a microphone here. Great. I invite you to introduce yourself a little further and take it away. Have a great discussion.
So everybody had a good lunch? Yeah, great. Fantastic. Let's start. So let's start with you, Anne. So can you tell us about some strategies for C-level executives to communicate with their junior colleagues to neutralize any disruptions in business?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I said, hi, everybody. There you are. There you are. So the question was, can I give a couple points for C-level executives to neutralize conversations with their junior employees? This is how I see it. If you're at C-level, you oversee somebody underneath you. What does it take to oversee somebody underneath you? It takes you to listen. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I think you need to listen 2/3 of the time, and you need to talk 1/3 of the time. And the first thing you should do, in my opinion, is ask one question. Because we're talking about disruption. So what is disruption? Something is going wrong, and somebody created that, whether it's the environment or a person. So bring them in and ask, tell me how you see the situation. And then, that's my first, so listen 2/3, talk 1/3, ask the question, see, how do you see the situation? And then I need you to sit back and get very comfortable with silence. Silence. People are uncomfortable with silence. Has anybody ever been on the stand in court? I've been in medicine for 26 years. I have been on the stand in court and always found innocent. Why? Because I see the situation. I get asked a question and I sit back and get comfortable with silence. And that's my silence. Okay, it's done. Oh, so just wait for them to answer. So that's the other thing. Really let them answer. How do they see the situation? It may be completely different than the way you do, and you're going to collect everything you need from where they're standing, and then you can meet them where they're at and infiltrate the thought process and bring them into where you need them to be.
Thank you. That was insightful. So to the other Amit on this panel, what strategies can leadership teams use to build alignment and cohesion in the face of disruptive change?
Thank you. When I look at people and teams, I look at the people first. I look at the individuals first. And when I think of alignment and cohesion, I look at one person, the leader that I'm looking at in particular. And whenever disruption, we're talking about disruption, right, happens, it's an external event, and it's also a definition of that person's disruption, right? So for me, in my life, disruption is normal, right? Because everything changes all of the time. It's how I react to it that is the key element. And so that's what I would look at first, is the individual and their patterning, their way they view the world, the way they take disruption, how they react, what's really running their software, because that's also what's running their team, that's also what's running their company, and that's also what's running, the customers that are attracted to them. They're all running off a similar pattern and software. They're doing it in different ways in terms of behavior, so psychology can only get you so far. But you have to look at like kind of what is the operating system of the individual, the C-suite leader that we're talking about first, before we look at the team, because it's their patterning. So if they're always coming back, like give you an example, they're always coming back, and no matter what's happening in their world, they come back, feel alone, misunderstood, you know, nobody really gets them, so they're compromising in some way, shape, or form. And therefore, that's what's running, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis in their business. That's what's running when they get a disruptive activity happen from outside of them. That's going to run that company. And so my kind of key thing is to go inside out from the individual before you go into the team.
Excellent. So Harshal, how do sales teams, how do sales teams adapt to changing priorities of the bosses up there on C-suites during disruptive change?
Absolutely. So I think in addition to what Amit said, during the disruptive times, sales forecasts become like a weather forecast. You can't predict what's going to happen. So from that particular perspective, I think it is important to seek the cross-functional help. For example, let's say if you are a tech company, it's important to involve the CTOs or the VP of engineering kind of people to extend their support to the sales team in order to demonstrate the right use cases. So cross-functional help is one of the ways to improve the funnel. Second is nowadays BD is not restricting to business development; it's equally brand development as well. So the need to also adapt the business brand development as one of their main divisions, so that in the earlier session it was about the people. So from that perspective, I'm saying it's also important to recalibrate the value propositions actually. So every quarter it's important to revisit the messaging, what value propositions your company provides, and from that perspective it's important to realign the values that you will bring to the potential customers. And the last, I think sales team might need to also adapt the active listening systems, not in terms of what prospect is saying, but also in terms of the behaviors of the prospect. So there are not AI solutions which can be readily available that will support sales teams in order to really adapt the problem statements that they're facing actually.
So Mustafa, so you've got to hear these numbers. 22 categories in 22 countries in 22 years with some of the top FMCG companies in the world. That's Mustafa's experience. What would you say is the most significant challenges that C-level executives face during disruptive change?
So thank you for the intro. Thank you very much for the question, and hi everyone. So I think before we jump into this answer, let's differentiate between change and disruptive change. Okay, so change is inevitable. So change is everywhere. Change, for example, is when a process gets updated, when a restructure happens in a company. That's change, which happens every day. But disruptive change is an example of AI when it entered the new era. That's a disruptive change. A disruptive change in my industry, in FMCG, we used to buy our products from the normal groceries and key accounts, but now e-commerce is expanded. That's a disruptive change. So let's understand this first, and then we answer. So based on that, the key challenges from my point of view, the first one for any senior leader in an organization is to manage this change, because change doesn't happen overnight. Change is a transformation, is a journey. So the number one challenge from my point of view, being a senior leader, is how to manage the current deliverables on the short term versus still committing to the goals of the transformation or the aspiration that we want to reach. Because no one will be in a position to commit to a transformation to my boss or to my management in the global team that, okay, we will transfer XYZ in 2 years, but we will not deliver a single number or a single KPI within those 2 years. It doesn't happen this way. So that's reality. So that's the number one challenge. The second challenge from my point of view is resistance to change. So human beings are resistant by nature. And when I talk about resistance, I'm not talking about employees only. Some leadership team members resist. So I think this, I see someone clapping, so I think this is the nature that you want to deal with. Being a senior leader, you need also to manage your leadership team members, not to have the resistance that will not allow us to grow. The third one is clarity and focus during the journey. So you shouldn't lose this focus and clear communication. You need to have one communication as a leadership team to the organization. So the challenge here is how to maintain this clarity and focus throughout the transformation journey of the disruptive change. The other one that pops to my mind again is about people. So people are the heart of organizations. So how during the change, because change is something uncomfortable, how do you move through this journey but still maintain the healthy mental culture and well-being of the organization and people themselves? So the last one I will close with is resource allocation. So if you go through a transformation, let's say we do the AI transformation in an organization, and you have a certain number of employees. So definitely in transformations, you might not hire more people. You will need to relocate some people within the organization. So who will be responsible for delivering the today numbers, the KPIs, the operational stuff, and who will be part of the project? So the resource allocation for a senior leader is the fifth and last challenge that I will close with. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very insightful. By the way, human beings are not the only animals that are against it. I mean, yeah, both my dogs, they resist change. So, Anne, before you moved on to the entrepreneurial journey, you've been a healthcare delivery professional for 26 years. And in your profession, COVID was probably the biggest disruption that happened. So how did C-level executives in the healthcare domain known to you handle that disruption?
How did the C-suite level handle the healthcare disruption of COVID? They didn't.
That's an honest answer.
They didn't. Did you? Nobody knew how to handle COVID. COVID had never happened in where I was living in the United States. We never had a national pandemic before. So the C-suite of the government gave a blanket law, covered all of the states. The problem was, where I live in Wisconsin, we weren't hit with COVID yet. We were all fine. We were mandated to wear masks, stay at home, and not work. I was in healthcare. We could have actually been seeing our patients and maybe doing some preventive care. Well, what are your iron levels? What is your vitamin C? What is your vitamin D? But that doesn't ever come up, does it? Because the C-suite throws a blanket law. So by the time COVID hit my state, we were all going back to work. And we had no time to prepare. The C-suite, the doctors, the employees, the nurses, nobody. And that was the trauma of the epidemic, the pandemic, and the honest truth, and probably part of the demise of our healthcare system as we see it right now, unfortunately.
Thank you. So Amit, how can C-level leaders turn disruption into opportunity?
So, when I look at anybody in a leadership position, I kind of look and see what tools do they have available right now and what tools do they have available generally that they don't see as well, right? And my aim with them is always how can they become their most aware self and observational self so they're directing their movie as well as participating in it. So for me with disruption, in order to see the opportunity, for example, you people, leaders, need to be in a state of awareness as well as participating in what it is that disruption impact is on their business and who they are. And in order to do that, you've got many tools in the world, right? Some of my colleagues here on stage have talked about them, right? But what these C-suite people need to be in a state, I think, of doing is understanding what tool is the right tool in the right moment for that bespoke situation that they've deemed as disruptive. So that means that everything applies, right? Anything that anybody comes up with, any solution can apply to any situation. But what's the best solution? What's the best, kind of tool that you use in that situation? What is it best in terms of when you're managing your team? What's the best tool for them? Well, that's what a leader's, let's say, job is. But if I said that to everyone in the room, you might find it a bit of a burden that you have to be like that. So I come back to what I say before, in order to see the opportunities are bespoke to that disruption, right? So I can't give a one-fits-all answer about the opportunity that you have, but you're the one that lives in your world and sees the world the way you do. So you're the one that directs that opportunity. Therefore, I come back to what I said before, the C-suite, the people, even the people leaders, look at yourself, look at what is really driving your life, because whatever is driving your life can either expand what you see or it can limit what you see. And so that's where I would come from. So in order to see any bespoke opportunity from what you deem is disruptive, look at yourself.
So Harshal, what skills and traits do leaders in the sales profession, C-level leaders in the sales profession, have to navigate uncertainty?
Absolutely. So I think recently we did one survey with roughly 100 founders actually. And founders, yes. And the question was why they buy and what they buy. And we had 4 options, and the top options that they selected was ROI. If they spend money, what they will get in return actually. Unfortunately, when we did the same survey with the sales guys, the ROI was the last pointer in their checklist actually.
Wow.
So I think if sales team starts talking the language of ROI, then sales will really start to happen. And for that, I think the simplified communication is equally important. If we are selling, I think we need to sell it in extremely simplified language. In one line, we need to explain exactly what we do, what value we will bring in, because the attention span is decreasing day by day. From that particular perspective, I think from macro approach, we also need to move to the micro approach. When I say that, while let's say if we are sending the collaterals or marketing material to the founders or the stakeholders, we need to narrow it down to the sub-industry vertical and even the problem challenges that they might have seen. So right from advertisements, emails to the websites to throughout the marketing material, I think the unified messaging also supports sales team in order to uplift the sales numbers in a way actually. And of course, it's good idea to adapt the AI into the overall system, but to fully rely on AI is not a good idea, because at the end of it, we might need to strike the right balance between utilizing the GenAI generated insights of the potential prospect versus doing a manual research about that particular prospect before going to the meeting actually. So those are some of the things that could help in a way.
Okay. So Mustafa, coming to you, during this periods of disruption, how should leaders balance between short-term performance pressures with long-term transformational goals?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So I have worked in a couple of giant FMCGs, so Mars, Unilever, Henkel, Johnson. So my experience is extracted from those companies where we faced disruptive changes across, for example, one time I remember in Egypt, the revolution. During the COVID, that's another disruption. Then a massive change in the market dynamics happened in the region. So I think it's a very good question. How do we manage between long-term and short-term? Like we mentioned this in one of the challenges. So change is about leadership, and leadership is about people. So I'll pick 3 things to mention here to do related to people, because again, I always talk about leadership in any topic. So the first one to be able to balance is, how do you have the clarity in communication and adaptable mindset from every single one in the organization? Again, refer back to the challenge we mentioned, daily KPIs, deliverables for survival, okay, let's put it to that extent, versus transformational goals. So communication, in that sense, is very crucial to be clear and one message from the leadership. That's number 1. Number 2, I would say delegation. Delegation is one of the skills, and it is a skill that people sometimes overdo it, underdo it, but in disruptive change, delegation is needed because no one can do anything by his own or her own, okay? And when I say delegation, let's focus on those 3 words. Empowering, capable, teams. So, empowerment, that's part of delegation. Capable, because if you empower non-capable or uncapable people, that's a disaster. And teams. I didn't say individuals, teams. Because change is about working together. And the third one, which I like the most, because we said transformation or disruptive change or going through a change or a journey takes some time, some leaders think that celebrating major milestones are the things that are crucial for the business. I go for the opposite. Celebrate small wins. Recognize every week someone. You could do it every day. So small wins matter. Build the momentum of recognition throughout the journey, because people will be more passionate about change. Because we said, yes, human beings are resistant, but I mean everyone could be passionate about something and could do more than the maximum if they feel that at least they are recognized. So build this momentum, accept the change, individual change, and win small wins, recognize it, and focus on it on the day-to-day and weekly, to that extent. Those are the 3 things from my point of view. Thank you.
So now I'm just going to give a very short example of what you said about delegation. My own personal experience. I don't know how many people have heard of an Indian company called Tally, Tally. Some of you are. So it's India's largest accounting software. Started in 1988 as a startup in a garage by a college dropout whose initials also happened to be BG, like Bill Gates. And the product was excellent from day one. There was no doubt about that. For about 8 years or 9 years, the founder struggled to grow the company because he was just not able to delegate. And, his company grew to a maximum of 60 people and stagnated. Even though there was no equivalent product. So 8-9 years after the company was founded, a 50% stake was bought by this multi-billionaire. Some people know him by name, Mukesh Ambani. Some people know the business, Reliance Industries. Mukesh Ambani personally, not the company, not his company, but he personally bought a 50% stake in the company. And he told the founder, his name is Bharat Goenka, BG, said, Bharat, you do what you're best at. Keep on improving your product. I do not need you to attend marketing meetings, sales meetings, administration meetings, HR meetings. Just stay away. I'm going to put in 5, 6 leaders in the business. They will tell me if you attend any of those meetings. And I will personally come and reprimand you. And within 3 years of this happening, the company grew to 2,500 people. So delegation versus, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah. So, and although the topic is the disruptive change, my next question to you is not about disruption or not about disruptive change. In a normal period also, what do you think are the top 2 things that C-level executives need to do to get junior employees aligned to their vision and mission?
Okay, what's a C-level? What do you need to do? We all need to do? There are 2 things. I was in medicine for 26 years. I operated for 26 years. I've lived all over the country. I've lived in Europe. I've done different surgical specialties. And when I went into the operating room, who was I? I was the liaison between my surgeon, my patient, anesthesia, and the whole staff helping us. And there was one time we were working how many hours? The patient came in almost to the end of her life, and we needed to move fast. And everybody's mad. Everybody's mad because why do I have to do this case? Everybody's mad because I didn't get a call from the doctor. Everybody's mad because where did the patient come from? And I go flying in the operating room, and everyone's yelling at each other. Now, what could I have done? I could have easily been like, knock it off, we got something happening here. But I made a choice, and I said, what do you need? What do you got? You okay? All right, you're right. You're right. This is unfair. You should have been notified. I know it's hard to set up for anesthesia in like 2 seconds, but you know what? We got a patient. She's about to die because I was with her for the last 3 hours. Can you do that for me? I got it in. Okay, yeah, you guys, what do you need? I don't know instrumentation. Well, I know the instrumentation. Why do I know the instrumentation? And that's the lesson. Do you know the instrumentation to facilitate the room you walk into? I know the instrumentation because I need it. When I say I need a clamp, I need a very specific 90-degree clamp, atraumatic, I want a 90-degree clamp, atraumatic, because I don't want to have to look at it. That's a trust. What's like knowing trust? I need to walk in there and be like, hey, you don't need that instrument, you don't need that instrument. When we ask for this needle, we need that clamp next. When we've got this needle, we need that clamp. You got it? What do you need? You good? That's my lesson. Put your tennis shoes on and find out who is your team. What are they doing? I would say that was my number 1, number 2, number 3 problem with medicine is the demise of medicine is being told what to do, being forced to take a survey, and never having the results of our answers delivered. And that is what we're all saying. So when we say things like, rah, rah, get them on board, tell them what your mission is, no. All you're doing is giving them a PowerPoint. You put on your tennis shoes and you sit next to them, because nobody ever did that to me until I started to speak out a little. Until I started saying things like, I can't take this anymore. I can't take that I can't see my patients because I'm already working 10-hour days and 24 hours twice a week and 1 weekend a month. And now I have to send my patient to the ER and they're getting told that I'm not doing my job. And then C-suite comes and seeks me out. I'm okay with that. I'll tell you the truth. And you know what they said at the end? This is one of the best conversations I've had, and can we talk again? Yeah, we can talk again. And I would appreciate it if you didn't be so scary to the other employees, because maybe they would talk to you. So I think that maybe it's a little harsh. It doesn't matter if you're a C-suite. It doesn't matter if you're a ground level. It doesn't matter that I know what I'm doing, because when I go from your hospital to your hospital, you don't know that I know what I'm doing. So what do? I put on my tennis shoes and I prove I know what I'm doing. I start at the bottom. Tell me how do you run? What are you doing here? Because the only way to get like, know, and trust is, one, can I trust myself in this situation that I'm not going to screw something up? And what is it? How do I get them on my team? Get them on your team by knowing what are the tools they need to do the job to run our companies. And I think that's the answer.
So Amit, you can take a few seconds thinking about this. But if you were the mayor of New York, if you were the mayor of New York City on 9/11, what do you think your biggest challenge would have been, and how would you have handled it? I'm saying you can take your time. It's not an easy question.
As in right now or then? So I can.
On 9/11, if you were the mayor of New York City.
Then I have to go back to what I was like in 9/11. So, which is a bit of a personal story. So to answer that question. So my background, personal story, my background, as an external label, I was in M&A and investment banking for over 20 years. I was in banking, I was in advisory, I was in industry, I was in private equity, I was C-suite. And I've had, from external perspective, very successful career. Internally, I did not feel that way. Internally, I felt misunderstood, alone, wanted to validate. As I became more and more senior, I became very, very, very alone in those positionings. And in that aloneness, I couldn't ask anybody anything else because I'm meant to know everything. I'm meant to know as a leader what to do, how to do it, who to go with, and nobody taught me how to become a leader. I didn't teach myself either. And I had a breakdown because I was being so far removed from who I really was. And we talked about mindset and heart-based, empathetic leadership. We talk about, those authentic. But actually it comes from something internal. So in 9/11, I would have probably flailed, and I wouldn't have known what to do, and I would have been the biggest pretender. And you would not.
What do you think your biggest challenge would have been? Handling what? One particular.
Honestly, I would have been the biggest pretender, and I would have unraveled because I wouldn't have known what to do because I wasn't.
I think he deserves a round of applause
Right?
for that very, very honest answer.
Right, so that's the honest truth. I wouldn't have known what to do, and it would have been the biggest disruption for my personal, as well as everybody else. Of course, it was awful for me to kind of either sink or swim. And, I think everybody has those moments in their life, at least one or two, where basically they go right to ground zero and they have to do something different in order to rise back up in whatever way that is. They have to shed themselves, they have to shed who they are, and everything that they really are has to come to the fore. And that's what 9/11 would have done for me, but I had that anyway in a different way on a microcosm, which is macro for me. So that's what I was so far removed from what I put out there. And I was very intelligent enough, if you could call it that way, to put so many masks up to so many people about who I was, that I was burnt out every day, completely, couldn't perform. If you're talking about now, and I would never want that again, obviously from a disruptive perspective, if you're talking about now, I would not be like that at all. I would hope I'm not like that at all, because in that way, I don't feel alone. I feel very supported. I see that everyone's a mirror of me in some way, shape, or form. It's my perspective on how I see them that shows me my own mirror, in which case they are me. And so therefore, I see everybody's just because of my own abilities. So I was always very aware about people and who they are and how they operate and also their best possibilities. And that comes from awareness, right? Which everybody has. You're on your own journey on that. So I would therefore bring together hopefully the right people who would collaborate and move together. And I would be the active. I know who I am right now at this level of awareness. I would activate them to do whatever it is that they need to do. But that's now. Before I would have fled. I'd probably run away, and I probably would have never, I would have been guilty for the rest of my life, and I would have felt alone. I would have felt I betrayed everyone. I would have felt that I, didn't do the sacrifice. And these are big patterns, right? So they're the patterns I was operating from. And I have been on my journey to look at myself, to release those patterns in order to be free, so that I understand the concept of what it is to be abundant. And that's what I would, it doesn't matter if you're C-suite or anything, everyone in this room is a leader. It doesn't matter what you label yourself as the leader, you're a leader. And your journey is yourself. And through yourself, you see everybody else. And it's that way around. So thank you for that question, because that was a question that really got me to where I was before, and it's not who I am now.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sarshil, I have to think about this. I don't mean it in a bad way, but just as an example, you have 150 employees in your company, right? Let's assume, I don't know whether they're all working in one site, but let's assume all of them are working in one site, in one office building. And on a Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock, that building catches fire. People are injured, everything is burnt out, all your servers are gone. What would you do? How will you handle that crisis?
Fortunately, we got fire safety in place.
Your data's on the cloud, I hope.
Which is a proactive measure of, second thing is...
Despite that, fires can cause damage.
But practically, out of 150, around 12 leaders are working from the office. And
No, I'm saying hypothetical, right? So the question was hypothetical.
I think it's better to have the proactive measures because, we ensured since the beginning that, fire safety measures are there in a way. But, and we also have the fire drill water. So
Okay.
that's what, so I think I personally feel that, proactive measures are always needed in a way.
Okay.
I love it. I think it's time to open up for a question. What do you think? Would you like to open it to the audience?
Just one last
Sure.
quick question to Mustafa. So, 22 years, 22 categories. What's been your biggest challenge as a leader?
So, my biggest challenge is how to maintain the culture, because again, what any leader, and myself being one of those, care about is people. So I would say, so my personal purpose in life is to make a difference in people's life every day. That's my personal purpose that I identified 8 years ago, and everything is around that. And I'm not trying to do any marketing. I don't have a product to sell, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm one of the influencers in this great country, and I write a lot about these authentic leadership thoughts. So, in a nutshell, the number one priority and the number one challenge and the number one aim for any leader is how to care about your people in whatever organization, in whatever industry, because resilient, mentally fit people are the only answers to any problem you have at any certain point of time, at any industry. Thank you.
Yeah, you can go to questions.
Fantastic. Well, nice. What do we got? Well, I promised you here. I pushed you off last time. I want you to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Sana. I'm a professional coach, and I support both individuals and organizations. I've experienced myself in my role as operation director of some of the largest design and engineering firm in the world, having to lead and work in what we call adaptive challenges, meaning challenges that they are far from agreement and far from certainty. That's a tough space to be as a leader. But it's the reality of the business, is the reality of the world. So I now work with organizations and individuals across different geographies, supporting them through these phases. And the question that I have is, as in your experience, what do you think is the leadership skill that the C-level executives need to learn and master to be able to lead during adaptive challenges time and seeing them through the lenses of opportunities rather than threats? Thank you.
And is that question for anybody in particular? Or
Anyone, whoever
anyone?
wants to answer. Thank you.
Amit, yeah.
I wouldn't mind. The number one would be awareness, observation and awareness, because through that you can start to see how you are doing what you're doing, what is happening in your environment, and then you can start to get to the next kind of, let's say, iterations of collaboration, all of those kind of things, authenticity. But you need, I kind of liken it to, you're the producer and the director of your own movie, and you star in it too. So as much as you and I are interacting right now, there is another you here watching everything that you're doing from a different perspective. So come from there a lot more, and you get to see the whole map. And then that map then gives you that pinball direction of what it is that you personally need to do, not how somebody else is doing it.
If I could add 2 words to that, a skill and a strategy that always work in leadership and in change times, empathy and communication. Other than that, it's all business related, but again, business linked to human beings, empathy and communication. That's my answer.
And yes.
Okay, get your pen and paper. Get your pen and paper. When there's disruption and hostility, right, because you're really dealing with somebody's hostile, whatever that interaction is, you're going to let them talk, and you're going to ask this, write this. What I hear you saying is blank. That makes me feel blank. Is that what you meant? And let them answer it. Because now you flipped it, right? So we're having an interaction, you're upset. Ahmed, what I hear you saying is that you think the C-suite isn't compensating you except with a pin every 6 months because you're working 12-hour days. That makes me feel a little shocked because I feel like we're actually giving you more with benefits and a raise. Is that what you meant? Can you explain that? It's a skill. It's an exact skill. It sounds so simple. Prove me wrong. Try it once. They will feel heard, and you'll see what is it, how are they interpreting the hostility? Because you got an X and a Y curve, and you need to start changing the paradigm. The only way you're going to do that is let them voice their opinion, and the way to get what they're really saying is to ask, is that what you meant?
Good, got it. I got a question over here. I'm coming for you. Okay, thanks so much for being patient.
No problem. Paul Barrett from Indianapolis, Indiana, Barrett Enterprise, Chairman and CEO. And you said something that struck me. You're in surgery, and you had disruptive change in surgery that didn't impact the whole healthcare system, but in surgery. So how do you manage for disruptive change that's not 9/11, but happens every day?
Figure out who you are. That's what we're all saying. I have a pet peeve. I don't hypothesize, and I don't theorize. I find it a waste of time. So when I answer, I'm trying to give you a tool. Well, what's the tool? The tool is you got to figure out who you are. How do you do that? You find a mentor like Ann Summer Coaching. Read The Power of Positive Living. Read any book that you haven't read that makes you think, like really question, who are you? Can you tell me? If I made you write down your 3 really big strengths that make you the best leader, you could do it. If I said, now write down the 3 biggest personality traits that define you, you would probably struggle. Because most people do, right? So until you can figure out like who you are to the core with no question, that you don't care what anybody says. You don't care what the gossip is. And when I say that, it's not so much like, I don't care what he's saying or she's saying. It's like, seriously, I must be doing something pretty great that they're wasting their energy in life talking about me. And the less that you give energy to those other people that's negative and fuel that, all you're doing is giving them ammunition that they're right, because you're giving them affirmations. And you do that when you're fearless, when you're bulletproof. And that would be my advice. And that's what I train people to do. Not that this is a self thing, but I figured out going from medicine into entrepreneurship and figuring out business and being told, like, you're crazy, why are you living a 6-figure income to like make $0 and invest another investment of your own money, because I know who I am to the core. I know that's what I'm meant to do. And until you get to do that, that's how you serve people. That's how you serve people. You won't even have to think about it. That's my answer. Does that make sense?
He agrees. Anyone else want to add to that?
Oh, okay.
We're up for our time, but great panelists. Thank you guys. Thanks for moderating. Please stand up. We'd love to have a picture.